Welcome to the EmpowHERment Show, a podcast designed to empower women like you to take control of your lives, make informed decisions, and redefine success on your own terms, beyond the noise of influencer culture. Okay, welcome back to the EmpowHERment Show, everyone. We are super excited to have Kristin Miller here with us today. Kristin is a dynamic certified coach, professional speaker, and accomplished professional with over 2 decades of experience leading high-performing teams and driving results. She is the founder of Inicio Coaching and the principal coach. And she worked with me earlier this year, sort of dig into some challenges I was dealing with, and we're going to chat through those today. But I'm super excited to have you here, Kristin. I've missed you. We had weekly calls when we were working together. She's based in Wisconsin. I'm out here in California. So we've never actually met in person, but maybe one day soon that'll happen. But yeah, do you want to do a quick intro for our guests and talk a bit more about your work and what you do?
I would love to. First of all, thank you for having me on. I know that this is something Maddie talked about for quite some time. And so then to get the email invitation to come on the show, I'm like, it's all the things are happening and I am not surprised in the least. So it's very nice to meet you both, Sam and Adama. I've been listening to the show and to know that we have a voice, to know that we have women who are talking about agency and who are talking about staying curious and questioning things and not simply taking what we see right now at face value, because right now, it is just freaking hard right now. Let's be honest. Like there is a lot going on right now in not only our society, but then when you add on like as women and how much we are taking on, it is why I do the work that I do and why I've been called to do the work that I do. And it's so exceptionally fulfilling. So thank you for creating this podcast and creating this space. And I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. We're going to dig into all the difficulties that women are facing today. But Adama, why don't you start us out with Policy Pop, a new little segment we're launching as part of our show. A lot of you responded to our poll yesterday, and no surprise, Adama, everybody chose the right answer. But why don't you dig into the question we wanted to dig into to sort of set the stage today?
Yeah, so some of you may have seen, Maddie posted on our Empower Instagram a question. What is the average number of unpaid hours women do each week in invisible labor? And the answer, and pretty much all of you came up with it, was around 4 to 5 hours more than men a week. And that is on top, of course, of full-time work that women may be doing outside of the home. And yeah, everybody responded that way. And, you know, we talk a lot about kind of the invisible tax on women and all of these different ways that the patriarchy kind of ends up working against women, even though we've made such great strides in the last few decades with women in the workforce, women in being educated, women in higher office, women in the C-suite even. Some of these same challenges really still continue to permeate all of the things we do as we try as, you know, women, mothers, wives, girlfriends, daughters, sisters, whatever you are, you know, there's all of these invisible things that kind of weigh on you as you're trying to work through those. So we definitely have a deeper burden as we move through our lives. So really appreciate you, Kristin, being here today. We want to talk about how do we possibly move through some of these challenges with, you know, more grace for ourselves, grace for our families, grace for the people in our lives as they're trying to support us through these things. So really love to hear more from you. I am looking to pick up tips today. I'm going to be taking notes. So thank you for joining us.
Of course. I love that that was the question that was posed, because oftentimes we're unaware of how much time it's actually taking from us, that invisible burden that we bear. It's something that when I started my coaching practice almost 2 years ago, I had co-created something called the Women's Rising Leadership Academy. And it was about how do we give the tools necessary for women in corporate America. Like over 75% of women under the age of 30 said that they envisioned themselves as a C-suite executive, but had no idea how to get there.
Wow.
right? So I know
75% of women?
75% of women under the age of 30. So I know that.
That says a lot to me. Under the age of 30. I mean,
Yeah.
love you ladies.
Well, yeah, I'm right there with you, Adama, right? Because I've lived it, I've seen it, and I do know, I recognize, look, great. Once you reach a certain level position, like there are something called executive coaches, and that's fantastic. But how do we get more women to that? I feel like middle management is where we lose ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I found through creating the Women's Rising Leadership Academy and bringing in keynote speakers and doing group coaching and taking them through the paces and doing some one-on-one coaching, what I found was really moving the needle the most was the one-on-one coaching. Because what was coming up is we can talk about leadership as a concept, but women were hitting these invisible barriers that they weren't even realizing were there. And a lot of it, when we start to boil down to at the core of the challenges we face, there's not enough hours in the day. There are not enough hours. And if you ask a woman like, oh, if you could have anything, I'll give me more hours in the day.
Totally.
So I had to really start to get to the root of like, sure, leadership eventually, yes, let's get women who want to impart that change and feel emboldened to do that. And if we can't get them in their daily lives to be able to come up for air and actually live this life that they are literally killing themselves to build, we're never going to get there. So really looking at the core of working with each individual woman, for me, it's a ripple effect. For me, it's like if I can help one woman really take control of the things that she has within her agency to control that, let's be honest, she's not wholly aware of right now. That is a ripple effect, because now that's going to impact any children in the house. It's going to impact her spouse. It's going to impact the people that she leads. If she's a people leader, the people that she knows. And so that's where my focus is like, this is where I know I can do my best work, is working with women individually to work through those challenges that frankly blindside. Like they don't even know that they are a problem. Most women identify time. I have a time management issue. It's like, yes. And there's so much more to unpack once we get through that.
Yeah. And Kristin, I think, just as some background for everyone on like why I came to you and why I think what you're talking about is so powerful. I am kind of in that middle management tier now within corporate America. I hit it young. I'm 30 years old and I'm a director at a Fortune 20 company. And my job is not exactly easy. It's very stressful and challenging and fulfilling and everything all at once. But I was reaching a point towards the end of last year where I started to really not feel like myself. I had hit all these milestones and gotten promotions and gotten recognition and kept climbing. And then at some point over the past year or so, all of that wasn't resonating in the way it had. And I felt very out of myself. It was just a very foreign feeling for me. And met you through a really good friend of mine, Kelsey Rothhouse. If she's listening, she works at the Giants. And I know you have a background in the baseball industry, Kristin. But she introduced me to you because you had really helped her work through these feelings of misalignment. And like, I just wasn't like in my body anymore. So can you talk, Kristin, a little bit about the approach you take with your clients like me and how you're helping women really pinpoint like what it is that's making them feel so burnt out?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you hit the nail on the head in the sense of like, especially from a young age, if we've ever identified as an overachiever, a people leader, like a natural born leader, and we've often told ourselves I'm a perfectionist, we have all these identities that we carry, and we carry that and we put our heads down and we go. And at a certain point, we pick our heads up and go, first of all, where am I? And do I want to be here? Yeah. And something is off. Something doesn't feel right. And one of the best things that can happen to you is you listen to that voice of like, something doesn't feel right. Because on paper, everything looks great. I've done all the things, right? I've taken the classes, I've networked, I've, gotten the promotions, I'm doing all the things. And yet something is off internally. Because oftentimes like I said, the goalpost, it's moving, right? So at one point it was like, I really want to work for XYZ company. Now I really want to get this title. Oh, I would love to lead people. Oh, what about this role in this, adjacent department? And so we put our heads down, and oftentimes we don't pick our heads up until something's really off. A lot of times we'll blow by a lot of flags until we get to that point. And so when women come to me, they're at this inflection point of, I feel like I've lost myself. I'm not quite sure what my next step is. And I really, really don't know what to do yet. So we lean into the two things that you can actually control. So I'm all about giving control. Like, let's put ourselves in the driver's seat. So the two things that we can actually control are our words and our breath. That's it. We cannot control what anyone else does, what anyone else says, what anyone else feels, what anyone else thinks. We can control the words that we use. So think about not only word choice, but volume, cadence, tone, inflection, all of those things. The words that we use create energy. That energy creates feelings in our body. And those feelings in our body, whether we're recognizing them or not, are leading us to take action or not take action in a certain way.
Yeah.
Breath is the one thing that you can do. You get control of your breath. You breathe low and slow. You bring your cortisol levels down. You actually gain control. Like, amygdala hijack is real, right? When we're talking about fight or flight response, we have women living in fight or flight response.
Every day.
That is a place we are to visit in emergency situations only. And that response of the brain is to do one job, and that is to save the organism. And we have women living in fight or flight response. That is not a place to live. So when we can get control of our breath and we start breathing low and slow in our belly, and become very aware of the words that we're using, how we're using them, both of those things put us into our bodies. And when we are in our bodies, first of all, in order to even do that, you have to slow down. And it's the antithesis of what many of us as overachievers and ambitious women want to do. Because what we want to do when something isn't right, we want to double down. Well, I just got to do more. I got to figure this out, right? I'm going to do more of this, and maybe I'll try this, and I'm going to add this, I'm going to add this, I'm going to add this. When really what we need is to slow down and take inventory of actually how we're feeling. And one of the first questions I will ask a woman in a session is, she'll say a sentence, I'll type it out. I'll ask her to repeat that sentence back to me, and I'll say, okay, what do you feel in your body when you say that? And 9 times out of 10, initially the first response I get is, well, logically, I understand it, and they start telling me how they're thinking about their thinking. We're very good about thinking about our thinking. What we're not trained at doing, because no one has ever taught us this, we don't do this in school. How do you feel in your body when you say those words? And when you start to become aware of how you feel in your body, now you can start to recognize, oh, when I start using negations, like, I don't want to feel stressed. Okay, well, what do you want to feel? I want to feel empowered. Okay, let's take out the want and move it to can. I can feel empowered. Okay, what do you feel in your body? There. Where do you feel it specifically? Chest, shoulders, head? Okay, scale of 1 to 10, 1 low, 10 high. Now let's add in the breath. So we can go from a place simply from a single sentence of, I don't want to feel this anymore, to this is what I can feel. Completely shifting actual feelings in our body, the actual chemicals in our body at that point. So,
and I have to say, this
go
was
ahead.
the most wild experience. Just like, somebody who did it with you, Kristin, for like 4 months. We would I would write in Google Doc. She would give me a prompt, and I would have some journaling to do in between our sessions. And then she would have me read out loud everything I wrote, have me do it again, like 70% of the pace, and then have me do it again and take a deep breath over every single sentence. And that process, it's one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever done. And Kristin, I kind of hated you at first because I was like, why are you making me do this? It felt like torture. But it was because I was really getting into my feels and like acknowledging a decade of work and all the experiences that came with it. that had really left this like indelible mark that I had never addressed. It was the most powerful thing. And so highly recommend if anybody is feeling stuck, talk to this gal because she totally changed my life. But yeah, I want to dig into Kristin, like burnout, because that was really like what drove me to you. Like I felt like I had nothing left to give. And it was a really scary feeling because I'm somebody who like is a doer. And I like was struggling to get out of bed, to be quite honest. I was like depressed and anxious and it was just like bad. Can you talk about why our culture, why you think we reward burnout? Why do people wear it as a badge of honor?
Oh, where do I start? There's so many ways in which our society has celebrated hustle culture. And at the core of it, in my opinion, we live in a capitalist society. And let's be honest, women who are in pain and do not feel enough, they're really good for business. It's really good for so many industries for women to feel and have to reach out to feel better, right?
Yeah.
Because what happens when you don't feel enough? You search for the solution, right? So you're scrolling, you're purchasing, you're shopping, you're looking to fill that void, not because like you're lazy, because you're desperate for the answer. And we've been taught from a very young age how much who we are and what we're worth is tied to productivity. And we've been told as women that we are fantastic multitaskers. It's such bullshit because there's no such thing as multitasking. So we've been taught it's not a thing. It's actually called task switching. And your brain has to do it at like a rate that you can't comprehend. But every time you do it, you get taxed both on your time and your energy. Your brain takes that hit. And so when you're doing 2, 3, 4 things at a time, which by the way, we're told, oh, women, you're so good at this thing. You're so good at this. We are literally killing ourselves because the stats show that 71% of people that multitask on like regularly are more likely to burn out.
So I did an exercise with a coach. I did executive coaching a while back and it was predominantly men, right? So just a very different feel. And one of the tasks that they had me do was track on a 30-minute increment everything that I did all day that I was awake. So whatever time you get up to whatever time you sleep, what did you do that day?
Sam, how many pages was that for you?
It was a spreadsheet.
Still.
10,000 times.
And it was at this point where like I had been with someone for a long time and Donna, you'll probably remember this conversation, but I was running 3 businesses and my daughter was still at home and pretty much everyone that I loved in my life was angry at me. Because as I took on new businesses and new roles and that goalpost moved, I took on all those things, but I never let go of any of the other things. So, and this is, and I'll get to like my point here in a second, but I just couldn't delegate them. I wouldn't let them go. I had to hold everything. So number 1, the spreadsheet was stupid. Number 2, I was doing 23 things at once. And number 3, a bunch of them were things I should not be doing. Like, Sam, if you bill $1,000 an hour, why are you doing laundry? Like someone could do your laundry for $100 a week. And so number 1, just like, what should a team member who is your staff be doing? Let's give them that list. What should another person who is a vendor be doing? Like, why are you still doing food prep? A person can do that for you. And so being able to pare down that list was so important. And it helped me realize how much I was doing of what you just described. 3 things at once, on email, on the phone, on a Zoom, writing an email, while running the laundry. And it was just like, it felt very weird the first few days that I was like, we're going to do one task at a time for 30 minutes a piece. It felt so odd, but it did allow me to cull out some of the things I was doing that were sucking up all my time and taking me away from the people that I actually wanted to spend my time and money and energy with, but couldn't because I was just overwhelmed. And it was interesting to have that conversation with a bunch of men because obviously they didn't have the same task list I did, right?
No. Guaranteed.
The simple act of actually writing it down, how did that feel for you?
I didn't want to do it. I think probably like Maddie at first. I looked at this, number one, I looked at the pretty spreadsheet that they sent out and I was like, well, this isn't long enough for what I do in a day. So, my immediate thought was like, obviously this came from a man. There's not even enough lines on this thing. So I didn't want to do it. And then I would actually start to do it. It took me about a week because I would start to do it and then I would get distracted, right? Like the phone, because I wake up early and now people I work with know that they can call me at 4:45 or 5. And so then they do. So I had to start.
That's something you should right size. Let me be clear.
I actually should be saying that on the podcast. No, but I realized I had to put my do not disturb on while I was working so that I could even get the spreadsheet done. So there were all of these like self-created barriers to even filling out the spreadsheet in the first place. And then when I did fill it out, I just felt ridiculous. I'm like, why am I doing all of these things all at once? And then I started counting how many things did I finish today while I was trying to do 20 things. And right, if you can't ever get past 50% done because you're doing 10 things at once, you're not getting the thing done.
And this gets back to everybody in my life is mad at me as well.
Yeah. I mean, I remember talking to Adama because at the time my boyfriend was just like very fed up with me. Like, could you commit to taking a half day off on a Sunday so that you're not on your phone while we're doing something together? Just a half day, let the phone go away. And I just felt like and my daughter was upset. My girlfriends were upset. And I felt like I could do no right. I'm like, I'm trying to do everything. I'm carrying everything by myself. Everyone's mad at me. And my coach at the time said, and I was like, and it's not fair. And they don't appreciate what I'm dealing with. And my coach said, everyone's not mad at you because you're too busy, Sam. Everyone's mad at you because you're a liar. And I was like, whoa. And this is now my flag, like when I have to start delegating out again. And I'm like, what are you even talking about? He goes, because you want to spend the time and you want to spend the energy. And when you don't delegate and you don't take control of your time, you by default lie to the people that you say you're going to make space for because you're not present physically or emotionally. And I was like, oof. And I remember calling Adama and she was like, yes, ew, this is exactly, it's totally you. Like, pay the man more. You do
We'll be on the phone and Sam will be silent and I'll be like, what are you even doing? And she'll be like, oh, sorry, I'm trying to like do, and I'll be like,
right. Yeah. Or however many times I'm on the phone and she's like, could you not do the dishes also? Like, while whatever.
Or I'll be like, are you in the shower?
Yeah. Definitely take friend and family calls from the shower. Yeah. So, and that's my indicator, right? It's like, okay, well, do I prioritize? Do I value this? This is what I want to spend time with. And I have to do that now, right? In the middle of decluttering my house, I got to do a life declutter again because you have to sort of have some trigger to go, okay, I have to let these things go. Like, do these serve me anymore?
Mm-hmm. And where I would even lean into, and by the way, Maddie knows this, I'm a question asker because questions pull, answers push.
It drove me crazy, by the way. Like, I love you, Kristin, but you would always follow up with like, so tell me more about that. Or how do you feel about that? Like, she's like a therapist too. I know you're not a therapist, Kristin, but you basically acted as my therapist. And I was like, God damn it, you're really making me dig in here.
Well, because the answers are already within women. They're in there. You already know.
Yep.
So for me to be the one to tell you this is what's happening isn't going to resonate in a way when you uncover what it is for yourself. Right. So I would say in that situation, Sam, like, would it be accurate to say I'm lying to myself?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, because it's these things of like the best intentions, right? Like, I intend to do all these things.
Oh yeah.
But how honest with you about like, what can you hold? Do you have to be? And so that means what has to go. And like that sort of value tracking list, like something's got to go. Is it a client? Is it an activity? Can I delegate anything else? Like, I've already got a housekeeper, someone making my food and someone doing my laundry. Like, is there anything else? So you kind of have to triage and have a meaningful, like, honest conversation. And so if you're not willing to do that, then yeah, I mean, you can gaslight yourself all the way through therapy and coaching.
Exactly. Because the split focus is really people pleasing in disguise. What we're not doing is we're not honoring the thing that is directly in front of us. And we're saying my time isn't valuable enough that I can focus on one thing. Because really time management is really prioritization. Where are you putting your priority? So if your priority is, I want to go to my kid's soccer game, okay, what are you doing that is setting that up as the priority? Are you holding that space in a real way? And what things do you need to do in order to get there? There's actually an activity I created for women, an activity that every time I run it in like a group coaching setting, the women that go through it, they gain about an hour back a day on average. So we're talking about 7 hours a week where we go through, and the first thing we do, and it's uncomfortable, but is to dump out all the stuff in your head. Because how much stuff, because we talk about the invisible work, how many things are in our head that we're like, oh, I know I need to do that, but nobody else knows that it needs to be done. It's just the thing that's in your head that you're like, oh, I know. So whether that's like, oh, trash pickup is Monday, I got to make sure to collect the stuff, and then replace this. Like there's so many steps in there that we just intrinsically, we're holding it up here. So the first step in just clearing it out is to remove the space that it's taking up. Like there's mental real estate that once you free that up and you're looking at it as opposed to holding it up here, you're like, whoa. And in your case, Sam, you're like, this is a lot. This is a lot that is actually, how much of it am I holding up here that I would never even think to write down? Then the next steps the paces that we go through is, okay, let's qualify this, right? Is this life or death? Do I have the capacity to do this? Do I have the authority to do this? Do I have the desire to do this? And can I outsource this? Then we qualify it, then we question it. So there's a reflection period. So in going through the paces, on average, women gain back an hour a day. We have no idea. We've never slowed down enough to really inventory how much mental real estate is being taken up by the invisible things that we do, that we just do and don't think about. That, let's be honest, as we level up and as we take on more responsibility and create bigger, fuller lives for ourselves, we add. We simply keep adding. We don't subtract in a real way. And that's when the rubber meets the road. That's when the red flags start going off. And let me tell you, when you ignore the like, something's feeling off, that whisper, I call it a whisper, eventually it will become a scream. And that scream is your body then telling you, no, you're done. Honey, you're done. I've had women that come up, they autoimmune issues. They've now long-term damage to their systems, chronic stress, sleep issues, and it's a ripple effect. So that's why when I say that one of the best things that can happen is that you have an alarm going off internally going, something's not right, something's not right. That's an excellent sign. It's your body telling you like, hey, it's time to take care of ourselves.
Well, and right after we worked together, Kristin, I mean, I think we wrapped in like early March with our program. And it was crazy because I felt like you almost like unleashed all these like symptoms and feelings in my body that then prompted me to go work with the doctor and figure out what is going on. And like I just had lab work done and my cortisol was like double what normal is. Getting to do the box breathing more often that you taught me. And I had all these other autoimmune markers actually that I'm now trying to dig into and understand like what this is and how do I manage it? Because like I've been struggling with sleep. I have like all kinds of gut stuff. And like feel like I got hit by a train every other day. Like it's like not been fun. Mm-hmm. But I genuinely do believe that it's all stemming from this like perpetual state of burnout and not having addressed what was burning me out. Because in our hustle culture in America, people who do the most get rewarded. But then at some point, your body's going to be like, yeah, no, we're done here.
And I feel like it's funny watching like younger women, like Gen Z and like some of the youngers, like they are not about this program. They have been like watching us work and they are like, yeah, but for why? Like, what
Totally.
are y'all doing?
I'm like one of the last, I'm like a young millennial, I guess, or kind of I border between Gen Z and millennial. And it's really interesting, Dama, because colleagues who are like right below me at work are looking at me and all my peers going like, why are you doing this to yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when we were doing the last company I was at, they were doing a bunch of layoffs and they were offering people either some people layoffs and then some people like you can look for a new role within the company. And there were a lot of young people who were like, bye. And I was like, you don't even want to try.
Like you don't get to go yet. But I've been here like
yeah, I've been here a decade. What do you mean you're just gonna like take the package and roll the dice on, finding another job, doing something else? And honestly, years ago, I'll never forget this. This young woman worked for me, and this was years ago when I was in Sacramento as a lobbyist. And she literally told me, she called me one day. She's like, hey, she worked down in LA. She was like, hey, I'm quitting. I'm gonna do yoga training, and I was like, but like it just the mindset was so different to me. And she was like, yeah, girl, I see you, and I'm not doing all that. And I was like,
well, what's so interesting right now, and this is something we want to start talking about more, toxic trend. So I'm like a doom scroller. I'm not the example. I love going on socials and seeing like
chronically online.
Totally chronically online. But because I do find it to be such an interesting reflection of our culture and how people are understanding like the world we live in. And there's this trend on TikTok right now, lucky to have a job / girl be grateful. And these young women are posting these videos, like romanticizing their corporate role and how great it is. And because there's all these layoffs going on and because of all the macroeconomic uncertainties we're now dealing with, everybody's like, just put your head down, hustle hard, and it'll reward you. And I find this really concerning because to me, it's perpetuating exploitation, to be quite honest. And it's also stalling our ability to make progress in America. Like, as somebody who's married to a Kiwi, New Zealanders, they live to work, or they work to live. We in America live to work. Like, it's our identity. And I think that's so toxic. And I think that's partly like why burnout is so prevalent here. I don't know, Kristin, I'd love your thoughts on that.
I think I love, we can stay really curious about this. And oftentimes it's not the questions that we ask, but are we asking even the right questions? So like how, like instead of the why, but like how is burnout being perpetuated? And you tied into something really, really key is that there is a large number of us in our society that we've tied our identity to the work that we do. So I have started asking women instead of like, how are you doing, to what are you feeling right now? We have become human doings instead of human beings. We're very good at the doing. We're very good at like do more. We've lost touch with who we are as human beings. And so this definition of success is one of the big things that I work on with women is like, what is success to you? I had never asked myself that. So I became the coach that I wished I would have had because I was also stuck in middle management for a very long time. I saw executives getting executive coaches, and I was in this place where I ignored myself for so long that I burnt out 2 times over. I mean, I started out as a professional actor in New York. Then I found my way into corporate America, and then I started my own business. So I know what it is to like burn it down and build it back up again. And it's terrifying. And it is the most liberating thing you can do because I really, in order to build something that doesn't exist yet, I've had to root into like, who am I? What actually moves me? And at the end of the day, because we live in the society we live in, like that status and like you have to have money, and we're talking about, recession, and we're talking, it's all it can be very scary. And when you coming from a place of fear and you're looking in the direction you don't want to go, you're making decisions rooted in fear. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. So when we often talk about what we don't want, what we're afraid of, well, guess what? That's where you're focusing. That's where your energy is actually pointed. So it feels very scary to take on a new identity, to ask ourselves, what do I really want? And I remember one of the questions that I had asked you, Maddie. I don't know if you remember this. I said, rather than asking the question, have I rested or have I worked enough to rest? Have I rested enough to work?
Oh, yeah, I do remember that. I cried because I was like, oh shit.
Because we feel that rest has to be something that is earned.
This is why some of us never rest.
I mean, I remember this
years ago.
Yeah. I remember years ago, we went on a vacation, me, Sam, and another friend, and we were running, it was to go run a marathon. Okay. Like, first of all, what are we even doing?
That's not a vacation.
Yeah. We were literally going to Barcelona to run the Barcelona marathon because this is the kind of thing I do. So training for months, running this marathon, I break my foot on mile 18. I still finish the marathon because like, I'm not a quitter, like all of these things. And I remember later, like we were all just sitting around talking about it. And like Sam didn't run the marathon because she's the only smart one. And she was like, well, but like, why do you have to like earn your vacation? Like, what is this Protestant work ethic thing that you have going that like, you can't just go on vacation. You've got to run a marathon to go on vacation.
I think I called it your puritanical work ethic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, what if we just drank wine? What if we just sat? And that's actually what I did do. I was like, you know what? I'm not running this marathon. I don't care. I don't care if people think I'm a fool that I trained all this time and I didn't do it. I'm not ready to do it. And I'm going to sit here and have this glass of wine on this cafe while these girls run their booties off. And you know what? I'll bring them oranges when they finish. How about that?
And I should have done that because I broke my foot. Like what? So like, but it's this whole thing. Like you have to earn something. Like you gotta deserve it.
Yeah.
And like we gotta get out of that. I mean, it's why you go to work when you're sick, right? Well, we're just gonna screw. Like
so much of the work that I do with women is this unlearning of beliefs that let's be honest, we inherited at some point. We can even question it because we're like, where did this even come from? The roots are from somewhere.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, so not only is it that I have this belief about myself, it's not the fact so much that you have the belief, but now you made it mean something about you. Because what would it mean about Adama to sign up for a marathon and go and actually not run it? What would that mean about you?
I would never do that. Look. I would never, I mean, I don't know. I would never do that. Like,
she would just mock me relentlessly for
So we're telling ourselves stories.
Train and not do it.
Yeah. We're telling ourselves stories about what certain things might mean about us. And they may or may not be accurate. And oftentimes they're not as accurate as they can be. So now we're telling ourselves a story about ourselves. We're making it mean something about ourselves. It's rooted in something that didn't even originate with us. It's creating an energy, which in turn is creating a feeling in our body that's getting us feeling frustrated, stressed, stuck, overwhelmed. And then we're doubling down going, well, I just need to do more of this. And it's absolutely infuriating. And I'm like, I know with the work that I do because it got me. So one thing that helped me. So I'm an enlifted certified coach. I sat in many a therapist chair, many a psychologist chair. I had worked with other coaches. I had been on and off antidepressants, anti-anxiety pills. There's a reason I have one child. I had very severe postpartum depression and anxiety. And that was the right choice for me and my family. And of all the things I've ever done and the abusive relationships I have left and the reinventing myself 2 times over, the one thing that moved the needle for me was this enlifted work, was what we just described, what Maddie just described, is the words and the breath. Because I have access to those things at every moment and they are completely free. So my goal in working with women is like, I want to work with you and I know that I can help you. And the goal is that we don't work with each other for a decade. Like I love that Maddie and I work together and perhaps we'll work together again when she's in another phase of her life where she's yet leveling up once again. But the goal is not to become dependent on me as it's like, I want to put the tools in your hand so that you are enabled and you know, oh, I've practiced this. I know what this feeling in my body means. I know exactly what I can do now to help myself through this. And it's not just the stuck and suck. That's like the step one, is getting through the stuck and suck, but doing things with women that are so foreign to us, celebrating wins. Like truly teaching women how to celebrate the wins that they've had instead of just consistently moving the goalpost forward further and further and further.
Like, what does celebrating wins look like? Because I know for me, like if I actually win something, I'll be like, oh, this is so great. And now I can do it times 2 next year. But like in the meantime, me and the girlies are going to have a martini. Like, you know?
Right. I was like celebrating a win for me. I was like, ew, how dare you be so loud at me? I'm like, oh, good, we won. Now we get to do more work, you guys. This is so fucking cool. Yeah, that's pretty much how I celebrate.
The reward in corporate America, the reward for doing something really well is more work. That is always the reward.
Oh, Adama, you're talking to someone who was in sales for over 20 years. Yeah, here's a bigger territory. Here's more clients. Like here's a bigger like
P&L
quota.
Yes. Wow, you're great. Here's a bigger P&L. Here we go.
Right. So we'll give you fewer resources because you're competent, so you don't need them. Right. Enjoy.
Correct. So celebrating the wins, really talk about rooting us into who we are and creating and rebuilding that identity of enough. Because when we know we're enough, we don't need to seek outside validation. We don't need to seek the accolades externally. So what that looks like is, again, challenging, because Maddie would be like, oh, are you kidding me? What are some of the great things that people have said about you? What are some of the nice things that people have done for you? What about your wins as a child? Like some of your earliest things. For me, it was like winning the 5th grade spelling bee. I distinctly remember, geography bee, right? I distinctly remember that moment. And then what are some of your biggest wins as an adult? And we get them on paper. We write them out. We 4-step them. That was the 4 steps Maddie just talked about. We get the breath in there. And now we're like, so here's the thing about 4-stepping. I don't know why it works this way, but we're talking about writing it down, reading it loud, reading it slow, and then getting in the breath. Those are the 4 steps. With the really nasty, icky stuff, it takes you from being the participant in the story to observing your story. And only when you can observe your story can you have an impartial go, oh, wait a second. Oh, okay. I no longer need to feel this. This is actually what happened. And we've recreated what that means about us. With the really bad, like the really great stuff about us, it is far away. Women will sit with those questions that I just asked you for days. And some women have even pushed off the next session because they can't fill it out. The really great things about ourselves, we have pushed them so far into the corner to go grab them is like, what? But once we start, then we get into the habit of starting to see where we win. Now we go from it being observing something that happened once upon a time that we forget about to actually living it. And when you can live your actual wins, which by the way, you have them every day. You have wins every single day, that when you can start to train yourself and you get really good at recognizing the wins, now you're rooted in who you are. And now our focus and our energy is on the direction we want to go and not the fear and all the other stuff that we've been programmed to do that we are unlearning.
Well, in case in point, when we worked together, Kristin, one of the conundrums I was facing was around, I was considering various paths with my career in terms of like what steps I should take next. And I felt paralyzed because I had all these options or potential options and I didn't know what to do. And you, at some point, one of the prompts was around writing about things I did as a child before the world told me what to do with my time and skills, just like what I gravitated to. What were my hobbies? And I had to go ask my mom about this. I was like, I don't know. What did 5-year-old Maddie do? Or 10-year-old Maddie or whatever. And she was like, oh, you sat on your swing for hours outside writing stories. I was like, what? Where are these stories? And she still has them. They're like, tucked away somewhere in storage. But I didn't think about that until my mom reminded me. And it was such a light bulb moment because I had just started talking to these ladies about creating some sort of a show and media business. And I was really taken aback when you were like realizing this, because I'm like, oh my God, I feel like lit up again because I'm now creating stories with two of my favorite women. Whoa. And so like I credit a lot of the show existing, my friend, to you helping me have that realization and going back to Adama and Sam and being like, we're doing this.
And she really did. She was like, and we're talking about it. Like, we're putting this together.
Exiting the group chat. This is becoming a thing.
This is becoming real.
And how many times did you write about it? You wrote about it several times. And so the word abracadabra, when you think of abracadabra, what do you automatically think of?
Magic.
Magic, right? So it's Aramaic in origin, and it loosely translates to with my words I create. So when you write something down and you spell it out, you're casting a spell. So when people talk about manifestation, it isn't simply the woo-woo stuff. Like I like a little bit of woo, but I'm very much grounded in the specifics of this is how we get there. It isn't simply woo-woo. You literally, from a young age, were creating this.
I call that strategic woo.
Oh, I like it. I'm going to steal that, Sam. I am strategic woo.
Well, we have another saying. We say, keep the Delulu high. Because we're like, no, just keep like putting out these crazy ideas and being a big
stuff at the wall.
Yeah. So we can be very intentional with our words and what we write because we are creating our reality. And so what doesn't happen is we often don't write down our words. We think them and we say them and they go unchecked. And so when we say certain things like, I just can't get my act together, or I just need 24 more hours, we're full of soft talk, we're full of negations, we're full of pressure language. And that is driving us to, it's creating energy, it's creating emotions. We're feeling them, we're not recognizing them, we're not rooted in them. And so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We get more of what we don't want because that is what we're manifesting.
Oof. I see Adama making a face right now. What are you thinking, my friend?
I know, I saw the face too. I'm like, please tell me what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, this is tough. I mean, it's really tough because I feel like it's at a certain point in your life where there's just, you have so many things going on, you have accomplishments and you do kind of get to a point where you're like, you're not doubting yourself as much anymore, right? I don't start jobs and I'm not like, oh my God, I might be nervous about how my things go, but like, I know I can do it at this point. That's not the issue, right? Because at a certain point, you just are what all of the things that you've done say you are. So fine. But when you start really then trying to figure out, well, how do I move forward? How do I be intentional with what I want to do next? That's uncomfortable to like have to dig into that. Like, I don't even know what I would do. Like if I had to go back and figure out like the stuff I used to like to do, I don't even know what that would look like at this point. I know. Like, but it's
worthwhile exercise, I can tell you.
Yeah. Like it's uncomfortable to even, you're just saying these things. I don't even have to go do them. And I'm like,
Yeah.
And that's the signal that growth is coming because growth isn't comfortable.
It's not. And I remember feeling, Kristin, like after our hours together, I would usually go for a walk because I needed to like get some fresh air, some sunshine.
Get in your body.
Get in my body. I felt more like than ever in my life. And like no even cringe guy could make me feel the way that you made me feel. And I say that with all the love.
I was like, please tell me there's an and then some more thoughts behind it.
No. But like, it's because of what we're saying around this, like this growth. Because I'm still like feeling it every day now as we're like moving forward with our show and our goals. And it's kind of crazy.
Well, I will say this, this is my loose stat. 98% of people would pay to not do the work that you did.
Oh, for sure.
So when I talk about like when you are a high achieving woman, you are ambitious, you are consistently signing up for the stuff that people would be like, I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. You're consistently challenging things that you thought weren't possible. Things that you're like, oh, this is going to be hard. and I'm going to show up anyway, and I'm going to do it for myself. That's the difference. And so there's a generation of women, like we talked about at the top, like they're ready for this and they're ready to do it in different ways outside of the system that currently exists.
And I love that for them. Honestly, I love that for them.
I want a generation of empowered women who are going to take over this world and make it a better place. Like that's fundamentally the goal, right? With what we're doing here.
Kill
We
themselves.
have the same goal.
And they're not going to make like some of these, what feels like impossible choices that I feel like some of us have had to make for, the course of our career to get to a certain place.
I feel like there's a phrase that like over the last year or so, I will actually say it out loud to myself. But when I realize, okay, I have to reset, I have to delegate out, I have to clear off the plate, like, and I find myself doing something that is just like, why am I doing this? Like, do I even want to be doing this? Do I even need to be doing it? How did I allow this to happen to me? So number one, like I did this to me. The thing that I'm doing right now that I don't want to do, I did that to me. And number two, Samantha, what are you doing with your one sweet life? Like, what are you doing with your one sweet life? Is it this thing you want to do? And so it's like this monologue that I have of, okay, something has to go, something has to give. Otherwise it'll be me. And that was something like, that's new for me, right? That's just in the last year that I'm like, something's got to give or it's going to be me.
Yeah. What's something on your list right now that you cannot delegate that you're telling yourself you have to do? Ooh, did you hear that exhale? That's a cognitive shift right there. That exhale, that's a cognitive shift.
I actually think like the exhale is because there's a few things that are very close to being delegated, but we're in like the in-between lands. Like this is almost off my plate. So case in point, for one of my companies, we just hired a CFO. The CFO is not onboarded. So I'm like, off my plate. I don't have to do this anymore. And it's like, actually, we need you on a 1 hour onboarding call so you can talk through the financial history going back to like 2019. And I'm like, but I thought I was done. And, it's that kind of like, no, I'm trying to get rid of you, but you can't quit me yet. There's that sort of transition point that I think for me gets really fatiguing. And it's very easy to just be like, fine, fuck, I'll just do it myself. And then you sort of lose the delegation, right? Like, oh, wait, how did I end up with this again? And so I have a few things like that I'm just like, that are rubber and glue that I'm trying
You're in the messy middle. You're in the messy middle of the transition. Yeah. And as women who are like, we get things done, we're like, I want it done yesterday. Let's go. And sitting with that can feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah, because it's you're not at a point of success. Like you're still carrying the weight or the accountability, and you can't feel the relief of getting rid of it, and you start to feel mired in the BS. Like, am I ever going to get there? Will it ever go away? Like, will this ever improve?
And then when we get there, we figure out something to do next.
Oh, for sure.
We move that goalpost again.
We celebrate the work.
Exactly. So really, a lot of the work that we do is like, how do we live in that messy middle? Mm-hmm. How do we thrive in that messy middle? Know that we are in a place where we are moving the direction we want to go and getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. One of the biggest unlocks for me was when I heard someone tell me that the level to which you can handle uncertainty is the level to which you will be successful.
Whoa. What did you say to me once, Adama? This had to be like 10 years ago. She said something like, you have the highest tolerance for bullshit and shenanigans of anyone I have ever met. And I feel like what you said is much more productive. I handle uncertainty with ease, Adama Iwo.
Yeah, I do not. I do not handle uncertainty.
No, I don't either, my friend. I'm with
ease
you.
Or grace remotely.
Right. Well, because here's the thing. It's through the control that we're like, well, this is my sweet spot. I can control the outcome. I can control what's happening. I control. And in reality, there's very little we actually control. We can influence and we can have, and where we tend to operate is sheer determination and just brunt force will, like just, often, most of the time, we're living in the messy middle. So learning where do I find comfort in the messy middle? What language am I using around that? What tools and resources am I using around that? And to what tolerance level am I okay with longevity of being in the messy middle, right? It's not a place that we live forever. But the degree to which we can tolerate it and the language that we use around it are going to indicate to us how we move through that period.
That's so
Because very rarely are we at a beginning of something, and very rarely are we at an end. We're often in the middle.
Well, like that's to me super valuable to even just marinate on, because I feel like it's so easy to linger in that place, or like you're out of this middle, but in another middle. And then at the end of the day, you have always been waiting instead of being in whatever you're in, right? Because if you're in that mess, it's like, well, but I'm going to get somewhere else. And you're never getting anywhere because you're always mired in the middle if you allow it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, then, as we come to sadly the close of this amazing conversation, for our listeners, what tips or advice would you give them in terms of how to navigate the messy middle? Because, to Sam's great point and to your point, like, you're always going to be in some kind of messy middle in your life, whether that's like within your work, whether it's within your relationships or anything. So yeah, I'm curious for what tips you would leave our listeners with.
So the messy middle can often feel like just, I will say, you're closer than you think to unlocking what you need to do. It is all right within you. And you can recognize and pay attention to when something is feeling off. Don't silence it. Don't push it away. Get curious with it. Like, this is feeling off. Put it down on paper. Get it out. Like, you can recognize at a certain point, like Adama, you said before, you're like, oh, the things that I wanted when I was younger. I'm like, right? If we're constantly evolving. So the things I wanted at 23, 26, don't even care about at 46 with a husband and a child. What got us here isn't going to get us there. So really understanding you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And really rooting into being that human being and not that human doing, giving yourself that permission. You're right there. You're right. Your toes are right on the precipice of something great.
Oh, man.
Thank you. I think after this, all of us are going to need to go for some walks and digest
Deep
everything
breaths.
you've talked about.
Yeah.
Deep breath.
Yes. Box breathing. Kristin, thank you so much. If people want to get in touch with you, learn more about what you do, any resources you might promote, what do you want to leave folks with if they want to learn more? Dig in.
Yeah, if you'd like to learn more about me, I am on Instagram at Inicio Coach, INICIO Coach. I'm very active on LinkedIn. If you can find your people, like go out there, find your people. I have found my people on LinkedIn. So I post there 5 days a week. You can also find information about my coaching services at snhacademy.com. So smarter, not harder. That's what SNH stands for. Smarter, not harder, academy.com. That is me, and you can connect with me there. I love engaging with like-minded women. It is my jam. It is my absolute favorite thing to do.
Awesome.
We'll link all those things in the description for the show, so it's easy for everybody. So little plug on our part: subscribe, because you're going to keep getting amazing resources and perspectives from amazing people like Kristin. So thank you, Kristin. Really, really great to see you. And have a great rest of your day, my friend. Thanks for just being an amazing life.
So thank you for having me. Love this.
You.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.